Have you ever wondered how our earliest ancestors, with none of the modern comforts we take for granted, managed to survive, let alone thrive? It wasn't just luck. It was an incredible collection of skills, knowledge passed down through generations that allowed them to navigate a world filled with challenges we can barely imagine. Today, we re-journeying back in time to uncover the ancient survival skills that didn't just help the first humans get by, they saved our species from extinction. Before grocery stores, before agriculture, there was foraging. Our ancestors were master botanists and ecologists. They possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of their local environment. They knew which plants were edible, which were medicinal, and, crucially, which were poisonous. This wasn't a casual hobby. It was a daily necessity. Imagine walking through a forest and being able to identify dozens of different berries, nuts, roots, and leaves. They knew the seasons like the back of their hand, understanding when a particular fruit would ripen or when a specific root would be at its most nutritious. This skill of identifying and gathering wild edibles provided a reliable, diverse food source that sustained communities through thick and thin. It was the foundation of their diet, a constant buffer against starvation. But plant knowledge was only half the equation. The ability to hunt was a game changer. Early humans weren't just chasing animals with sticks. They were brilliant strategists and innovators. The development of tools like the atlatla, or spear thrower, was revolutionary. It allowed a hunter to launch a spear with much greater force and accuracy, and from a safer distance. This wasn't just about strength. It was about physics. The atlatla acts as a lever, multiplying the power of the throw. This meant they could take down large game like mammoths and bison. Single successful hunt could feed a clan for weeks. They were also masters of tracking, able to read the landscape like a book. A broken twig, a faint footprint. The direction of the wind all were clues that told a story about the animal they were pursuing. This combination of advanced tool-making and deep ecological understanding made them incredibly effective hunters. Now, imagine having all that food but no way to preserve it. It would be a cycle of feast and famine. This is where food preservation techniques became absolutely vital. Drying was one of the simplest, yet most effective methods. Slicing meat and fruit tin and leaving it in the sun and wind would remove the moisture, preventing bacteria from spoiling it. This created lightweight, nutrient-dense food that could be stored for months. Smoking was another brilliant technique. Hanging meat in a smoky enclosure not only dried it but also coated it with natural chemicals from the wood smoke that acted as preservatives and added flavor. In colder climates, freezing was a natural option. They might bury food in the snow or in pits dug into the permafrost, creating natural freezers that kept their provisions safe for the long, harsh winters. These methods were the difference between surviving the winter and succumbing to it. Of all the skills, perhaps none was more transformative than the mastery of fire. Fire was warmth in the freezing cold. It was a torch that pushed back the darkness of the night. It was a tool for cooking, which not only made food safer and easier to digest, but also unlocked more nutrients. A cooked piece of meat or a roasted tuber provided far more energy than its raw counterpart. This caloric boost is thought by many scientists to have been a key factor in the development of our larger brains. Fire was also protection. A roaring campfire kept predators like saber-toothed cats and cave bears at bay, creating a safe zone for the family to rest. And finally, it was a social hub. Around the fire, stories were told, knowledge was shared, and community bonds were forged. Learning to create fire at will, using friction methods like a hand drill or bow drill, was one of humanity's greatest leaps forward. Shelter is a basic need, and early humans were experts at creating it from the materials around them. They didn't build permanent houses in the way we think of them today. Their shelters were often temporary, adaptable, and perfectly suited to their environment and nomadic lifestyle. In forested areas, they would build lean-tos from branches, saplings, and leaves, creating a quick, effective barrier against wind and rain. In rockier landscapes, they utilized natural formations, like caves and rock overhangs, which offered sturdy, pre-made protection. They would improve upon these natural shelters, sometimes building walls of stacked stone at the entrance for added security. In areas without many trees, they might even use the bones and hides of large animals, like mammoths, to construct dome-like huts. This ingenuity in creating shelter from the natural world was essential for surviving harsh weather, from blistering sun to freezing nights. Long before GPS or even compasses, our ancestors were incredible navigators. They moved across vast landscapes, following animal migrations, finding new resources, and connecting with other groups. How did they do it? They used the sun, the moon, and the stars. By observing the sun's path across the sky, they could determine direction. At night, the constellations provided a reliable map. Polaris, the North Star, was a fixed point to orient by, but their navigation went beyond the sky. They read the land itself. They understood that certain types of vegetation grew on south-facing slopes, that moss often grew on the shadier north side of trees, and that prevailing winds shaped the land and the trees in predictable ways. They followed rivers and mountain ranges as natural highways. This ability to navigate, to create mental maps of enormous territories, was what allowed humanity to spread out from Africa and populate the entire globe. Water is life, and finding it was a non-negotiable daily task. Early humans had an intimate understanding of their environment that led them to water. They knew to follow animal tracks, as most animals need to drink daily. They recognized that lush green vegetation was a sign of water nearby. Even if it wasn't visible on the surface, they would dig in dry riverbeds, knowing that water might still be flowing just beneath the sand. They observed the flight patterns of birds in the morning and evening, as many species fly towards water sources at these times. They could even collect dew from plants in the early morning. This collection of subtle clues and deep knowledge ensured they could stay hydrated even in arid environments, a skill absolutely critical for survival. Finally, none of these skills would have mattered without the ability to make tools. Tool making is what truly set our ancestors apart. This wasn't just about banging two rocks together. It was a precise craft called flint knapping. They would select the right kind of stone, like flint, chert, or obsidian, which fractures in a predictable way. With a hammerstone, they would strike the core stone at just the right angle, and with the right amount of force to break off a sharp flake. These flakes could be used as simple knives or scrapers. The core itself could be shaped into more complex tools, like hand axes. This technology, known as the Oldowan, and later the Acheulean industry, was the Swiss Army knife of the Stone Age. These tools were used for everything: butchering animals, scraping hides, carving wood, and digging for roots. The ability to conceptualize a tool and then create it from raw materials was a monumental cognitive leap, the very foundation of all future technology. From foraging for plants to reading the stars, from knapping flint to preserving food. These weren't just survival skills. They were a way of life. They represent a deep, intimate connection with the natural world that we have largely lost today. The ingenuity, intelligence, and resilience of our ancestors are written into our very DNA. They faced unimaginable challenges, and through their knowledge and skill, they not only survived, they paved the way for all of us. Their legacy is the story of humanity itself. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Let me know in the comments which ancient skill you find most impressive. Until next time, stay curious.